Hey there! Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener, how's it going? So, you've probably given up on us ever doing a viewer questions episode, but we finally got one done. It is here, I'm gonna show it to you in just a minute, but I wanted to say first that, we were a little rusty. We kind of wandered around a little bit, but it's a good episode, so you may either fast forward a little bit or just stick with it, because we get into some good questions after we get done blah, 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 and also we talk a little bit about alkalinity in a way we haven't really before as far as the progress we're making on that, and also about some new product development. So it's an interesting episode. It just starts a little slow. So watch this, and I'll talk to you after.
All right, here we go. Yeah, yeah, there's Bob.
Hey there! Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCG Fam Show. To you, my YouTube buddies. What's going on? Let me know in the comments. We're here for viewer questions with Scott Ostrander, Big Kahuna, Nectar for the Gods. I'm talking fast.
Really fast.
For fun.
Kind of creepy.
Okay. You starting over?
No,
Okay.
Just getting this a little less zoomed out.
Roberto Alvarez. Frequent questioner. When flushing my plant at the end of the season, should I flush with plain water or pH water? I'm interested too.
Yeah, it kind of depends on your water.
So, not for any kind of uptake issue, so no. But if you have a problem with your water, you don't want your water to be out of range.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to be flushing with 5.5 or 7.9 water, so I mean,
just for the
in range of some form of anywhere in 6s, absolutely. Anywhere in the low 7s, no problem. If it's in the 5s, you're just. My fear is that if you start flushing heavy with a low pH water, if there's any alkalinity built into your soil, you're going to break that down and basically and to deliver it nowhere. So it's just to get rid of alkalinity at that point. So 6s, yes, you're fine. 7, low 7s, no problem. Don't worry about pH adjusting.
So there's far ranges of it where it might be deleterious to any plant, but you're talking about also the alkalinity issue, which is something about uptake at the end of the road.
Well, it's not even that. It's next year when you want to reuse the soil. Why strip all your alkalinity out to do a 5.5 flush all the way at the end? Because it just is stripping down the calcium carbonate in the soil that could be there for your next season. So just as long as if you're not super acidic, you're fine.
Good answer. Good answer. In my opinion. Multisumi123. Off subject, yet timely. I'm excited. Can I use Herculean Harvest alone in water as a tea? And can it be applied immediately, or should it be sit for a couple days? No, you can't. You could probably use
like a compost tea, or because a lot of people get the tea piece confused with brewing a compost tea or making a fertilizer tea to feed their plants.
Yeah, so this comes back to that other question we were talking about a nutrient-rich tea where you're doing the Boogie Brew or something like that gives it nutrients. So maybe I guess he's asking that. Wouldn't Gaia be a better solution there? Or you might have a pH issue.
Oh, there's a pH issue, and then there's the already broken down food issue. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, everything we put in the bottles are things that we've already fully digested down into into its available form, so it's not a great food source for a microbial tea. If all he's doing is brewing a tea for plants by mixing up a few components, which would be just a feed, you can just do a Herculean. The key would be just check your pH. Just make sure your pH is in the range. So often you'll need to raise it a little bit, but some regions, if you have high pH water, just adding some Herculean into a 7.4 water source will just make that better.
So you take your nectar feed, you don't use it all, you just let it sit there for a couple days. It kind of just turns into a soup. That's still nutritious to your plants, isn't it? Kind of.
Well, it's nutritious to the soil.
The soil. Well, I guess that's what I'm kind of saying is maybe he's thinking something like that.
Yeah, but at the same point, why spend all this money on a product that's designed to feed the plant and then turn it into a soil food when I'd rather feed the plant, have the excess, not feed the plant, turn into soil food when it's still fresh and hasn't turned anaerobic or have the proteins locked. The longer this sits in a solution, the less available it becomes to the plant.
Yeah.
So, I don't see the benefit of making it into a tea. I had another guy saying, if I mix all this up with a super high pH, added my microbes, brewed my tea, then with the pH down to bring it back into range, hurt the microbes, and yes, definitely would hurt. So you definitely, when you're brewing a tea, you kind of want to get your water set to where you want the pH to be. If you need to change your pH, then brew your tea for 24 to 48 hours, then use the tea, and then clean your system.
So a compost tea is kind of along the same lines as compost. It's just way faster. We're doing it in a day instead of doing it in 6 months kind of thing. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And very. Yeah.
Okay.
And more importantly, if you have a compost pile with 10 million microbes, and I take a cup out of here and I brew it with oxygen, carbon, and a food source, I can take this little 500 microbes out of this million and turn them into 1,000,000 in 24.
I got it.
So the difference is taking a little bit, it's like a yeast. A starter yeast for sourdough bread.
A force multiplier.
You start with this much, you take that, you make your yeast bread, and you still keep your yeast culture.
I gotcha.
And that's what I teach people to compost teas. It's like, hey, brew 25 gallons, take 12 out, put 12 fresh gallons of water in, feed it 12 new tablespoons of carbon, molasses, give it a half hour to 45 minutes, that population can double in that time, and you can elongate 25 gallons and turn it into a few hundred gallons.
Wow.
But just give it 35 to 45 minutes, and it'll just keep multiplying. After about 24 hours, it's just, they start depleting.
Okay. I was reading that book by Anthony Bourdain about a long time ago. He's a cook.
Oh, I know.
And he would talk about the bakers. The guy that baked in the restaurant and the fish guy were like not part of the crew. They were kind of their own secret guy. And that guy had his little starter thing that it was, he brought with him and took with him if he left. And that was the crown jewels of the whole thing.
Yeah, a good starter yeast.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Kind of like
and
that.
Like Epstein, he didn't kill himself.
Okay.
Seems weird, doesn't it?
It does seem odd.
I'm super happy. I travel the world. I do the bacon. I better kill myself. That's what we do.
You seen Dave Chappelle talking about that? He talks about his friend that was in school with the smart guy in school, right? And did really well. They always knew this guy was going to be great. And then he saw him like 20 years later working at a Foot Locker, striped shirt and everything. The guy had a bad time. Everything had gone badly for him. And he's like, honestly, I'm at my mom's house. I'm trying to just get my life back together. And he tells the whole story of all the awful stuff that happened to this guy. And you're just like, And he goes, and through all that, never occurred to him to kill himself.
Nope.
But Anthony Bourdain, traveling the world, eating cool food, talking to cool people. We're off track.
A little bit.
Gimp Master.
Is that like Pulp Fiction?
That's what I was thinking about too. Get the Gimp. Oh.
This episode's a train wreck. Hold on! We're about to approach a hill!
He's walking with a chainsaw. That samurai sword. Arguably a lesser weapon, but the poetry of it, Surely, TDS / hyphen pH meter. Oh, no, okay. Surely, what's TDS?
Total dissolved solid.
pH of filter water should register any issues lowering pH in video. This is talking of... I have no idea what it's talking about. I remember before, but...
Yes.
Yeah.
So...
wouldn't... It was, I think it was the alkalinity issue, or the lowering soil.
pH of filter water would register any issue. So if filter water had a weird pH, that means that there's some type of... What he's saying, there's got to be some form of...
You would see a
dissolved
marker
solid.
of it. Yeah.
So this is more of a comment than a question?
I guess so. It's only a question if you disagree with him.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they answer that. Although if you had, a calcium carbonate in there that could register, an iron could register as a TDS, and then still have your pH be off.
I'll find the actual context of
this one.
All right. Jape. Yeah. JP. What's up? 543210. That's the rest of the. This is a bad episode. Hit us up with some coupon codes.
Croptober. OCGFam.com.
Just get the newsletter.
Get the newsletter. Sign up on OCGFam.com.
Because I used to do codes in the videos, but then that code would have to expire at some point. It was a nightmare.
Oh, it was such a logistic nightmare.
Yeah, so it's just, you get the newsletter.
I think Bob lost relationships in that deal.
I absolutely did.
We're recovering them.
Yeah.
That was...
but it gave me my work freedom.
For now.
Jeez. Vincenzo Bonella. I did pretty good with that, don't you think?
It is. It's like Cars the movie. Like he should be one of the race cars.
The little Ferrari one. The little Lamborghini.
Lamborghini. Enzo.
How does the magnesium sulfate affect the microbial life? I'm still unclear if sulfates are microbe murderers or not. Well, hey, manslaughter, microbe slaughterers, maybe not murderers. Let's not get murder into this. There's no intent.
Yeah. Well, no, there is. He's right. Sulfur's intention is to kill fungal bodies. So,
okay, so fair enough then.
I get that. In the yes, it would be. In like if you were to concentrate magnesium sulfate, magnesium alone in concentration would kill your microbes because it's that super heavy metal that's reactive. So it's all in perspective as far as the dilution rate. So magnesium sulfate in Medusa is super low. It's just enough to get a registration of magnesium, so we have that offering. But the sulfate alone is not enough to actually even register. So we don't even put sulfur on our label on that one because there's not enough. Sulfates, elemental sulfur and the sulfates don't necessarily have the same microbial death as a pure elemental sulfur. Like people burn sulfur in their rooms to get rid of mildew, mold, and all those. But in these micro mineral forms, it's more about the availability of the sulfate to the plant because they still want to eat that sulfate. It's just not in concentration to kill the microbe.
Okay. Well, they use it for the bud rot sometimes, right? Where the sulfur.
Well,
that kind of
stop it.
It's a killer.
Oh, it does. He's right. It murders. It murders hyphae. But in most every soil test we've done pre and post with microbial labs with with our mycorrhizae especially. We're not seeing die-off from even using our lignin sulfate because it's a lignosulfate. It's just a carbon chain that has a sulfur element to it.
So when someone looks at a label, they don't know how much of those things are, and that label is based on some principles of what the government wants you to show and not show, not necessarily what's exactly in there. There's just rules about that. And you could be all that or none that, you wouldn't know what the heck was going on.
And there should be a analytical lab that goes along with it that'll show you the numbers on the actual. If they make a claim for it, they should have a number for it.
Yeah, it's like, what the heck is... Because you could have almost none in there. Well, like I guess with mycorrhiza, you could have one mycorrhiza.
Although nowadays in most states they make you put an active spore count.
Oh, so they do stuff like that.
CFUs, and if you don't have those, then you're not. You get in trouble.
I gotcha.
Or if you use the wrong person's or the right person's mycorrhiza, and then you get it labbed, and then you send the labs with your registration to California, and they're like, that's impossible. But you're like, that's funny, because it's from a lab that you sent us to. And then you still have to dumb down your label. So, there's no winning. But, I'll do way more research on that. Everything we've seen through soil labs and soil tests and microbials pre and post, and there's definitely forms of sulfur versus sulfates that, are more harmful than not, and at levels that, with low levels, it's not harmful. In medium to high levels, it definitely is a control.
So almost anything is useful or toxic, depending on the level you
I
have.
I challenge you to get to Herc on the toxic level, but you could get to, like Magamp, you could get to a point where it's just too darn much. And then at what point are you harming your soil?
Okay.
But that is a good question, and I'll matter of fact, if he emails me, I will get more info from Frank and my team.
So we'll maybe come back to that a little bit, and also that other one that we didn't know the context on.
Yeah, well, that'll just have to be, if you still watch our show, you should clarify that one for us a little bit, and we'll get back to you.
If you make it through this episode and feel like you still want to continue with
this episode may never even get aired. Stand by at the end, we're giving away.
I hate that. And you'll be shocked by the last tip.
Yeah. Hold on, that tip is coming.
10 reasons, and one you won't believe at the very last. Yeah. A Micca. I add the Olympus pH up before brewing. Get my tea water to a pH of 10, then add my molasses and worm kitchen compost. Let it brew for 24 to 72 hours. Often, my pH is around 8 to 7 after brewing, like I'm using Bone and Gaia to bring the pH down, a point or half point in the tea before watering. My question is, does the tea die with the pH down? As I know in the case when you use pH up in the microbial teas, or perhaps the teas just die with any rapid fluctuations of pH.
Any rapid. So you really want to avoid full point swings on pH adjustments after the microbial. So in your case, I'd take your pH up to like 8.5 to 9, brew your teas, and then water it in.
So, but isn't the down a more deleterious substance than the up as far as, I mean, the pH is bad too, but...
Well, in our product, no, but in other products, yes, because it's usually a hydroxide.
Oh, okay.
And a hydroxide is the murder of all things, because it goes, oh, you have a soft body? Now you're water.
So not just the pH, but that's not the case with the...
No, what's happening here is it's literally just, even if it's completely natural pH adjusters up and down, citric acid and pure limestone, you still have a swing. It's us going from, X amount of parts per million of oxygen to concentrated oxygen.
Oh.
We can't handle it.
I got you.
It's not healthy for them, and they usually expire rapidly. So in that case, a lot of customers will just, if they have kind of odd water, they'll start with, okay, I got my 5.9 water. I take it up to 7. After brewing, all the microbial activity that exists, they still get into that like high 6s in the water.
So why is he doing all this with the getting up there and the getting down?
Chances are they're going for the food source in the Olympus up, the calcium carbonate, converting that into a bicarbonate. So it's a great food source. They probably have a low pH water to start with, so they're adjusting their water up so that they can brew a tea into it, but then feel like they need to bring it down. Now with teas, you have to remember, we're not feeding the teas to the plant, so pH isn't nearly as critical as a feeding pH. Because feeding pH, we're trying to get the plant to absorb the foods as it's passing over. When you're brewing a tea, we're creating the tea to go into the soil and eat the foods that are in the soil, and then that converts into usable nutrients for the plants to absorb.
So if it was at, 8, 7, somewhere in there after, so it's at 10, but then after he brews it gets down to 8 or 7, but that's over 24 hours?
Yeah.
Is that slow enough, or is it any kind of 3
Oh
points?
no, that's fine. It's coming down because it's naturally consuming and bringing it down. It's converting pH into alkalinity when it's taking that carbonate. All that consumption is converting into a bicarbonate. So his pH will drop as his alkalinity increases in a tea.
It's all good.
But then to drop it again after it slowly came down through microbial digestion, then chemically dropping it will destroy them.
Okay. So find what it's doing, but don't
pH adjust it again. So get it to your pH that knowing that at 10 you get to 8 or 7, start at 9 and get to 6.5 to 7.5.
So if it was even like at 8.2 or...
I wouldn't water 8.2 because then there's a residual limestone that's in that tea that's now going to be filtered into the potting soil, slowly increasing your pH in your soil, building up that pH. So
would you brew it longer? I mean, he's brewing 72 hours here at the...
No, because, you better keep the molasses fed, because after 48 hours, the carbon should be gone from the molasses, so they start eating each other, and they end up being 10 anyway, so...
Okay.
Every 36 to 48 hours, I make sure to refeed if I can't get to using the tea, because once the carbon's gone, they turn on each other. But if you keep the carbon going and not heavy, just enough, I recommend a tablespoon per gallon for the first 24 hours, half a tablespoon per gallon for additional 12 hours or between 12 and 24 more hours. So if you're not going to feed them or use that for another day, and it's 30 gallons, I'd give them at least 15 more tablespoons of molasses to get them through the night so I can use those microbes the next day.
And you wouldn't, there is an outer limit to this. You wouldn't just have a tea brewing that you fed every morning.
No, because there is eventually what happens is one species of bacteria or one group will outpopulate everybody, and then all you're doing is just feeding them one thing.
I gotcha.
So yeah, diversity is the freshness. Longevity is a concentration of one kind.
Okay. Donnie Smith. Oh, no, wait. They're all kind of they're moving around on here. Mark Maccabee. Why does Scott not like to use Hygrozime? Actually have a sample and wanted to add it to my feeds on a once-a-week basis. Hygrozime. But there is a reason. Because Newton's our guy.
I didn't know that this was... No, it's not even that. Hygrozime has a place. It definitely does. I have a bottle of Hygrozime.
Yeah, but it's not for an enzyme-type situation with your plants. It's for killing a bunch of stuff to start over kind of situation, right?
Kinda. It works. I'll give them this. So the only time I use Hygrozime is when SLF didn't catch up, and I was way overfeeding Herc, and I built up my gum layer so much, and my water is so slow that I can't get 5 gallons in an hour. So the Hygrozime will literally break that stuff down and digest it heavy. But it is non-selective on what it's digesting. And to me, my fear there, and we've had a lot of customers report back and a lot of soil labs done, where it's non-selective, so it can harm bacteria, it can harm the fungus in the soil, it can really strip out all the microbials you added, which isn't always necessarily a horrible thing. You can always rebuild these back in with compost teas and more mycorrhiza and all worm castings and all the entities we use. I use it as things just are messed up, like beyond repair that SLF can't catch up. Now, that's why I still have a bottle for years, and it lasts for years too. SLF, I find I can just keep using with every feeding. I can use it as a flush. I can use it as a top watering to break all the stuff down. So if I'm not having the issue, I stick with this enzyme. And the only reason this enzyme over that is that this one's living. This one's actually living organisms that are creating their own bacterial enzyme. That enzyme is literally to digest or dissolve broken down fibers and broken down organic matter. So if you have brown roots, that'll clean it up. If you have dead roots, that'll eat those dead roots up. If there's like old bark sitting in there, that'll digest the old bark. If you have gum on top, that'll break down the gum. It'll break down your fungus mat. It'll ruin your mycorrhizal layer. So to me, it's not a bad product. Now, where this thing was really awesome was, when I first worked at light manufacturing up in Portland 20 years ago, there's so much more of a synthetic based nutrient line.
And things could get out of hand with microbes just going crazy
or no microbes because they're dead. I mean, you're running so much synthetics, you're literally just feed the plant all the time. Hygrozime was like speed. I mean, it made 1,000 parts per million of general hydroponics turn into 1,800 parts per million of delivery. I mean, it was just bam, bam. So, and it kept roots crystal white, clean, clear, beautiful. I mean, it was literally the best thing for synthetic growers. If you have a hydro system, that stuff is great. Although this is all before I met Newton, and then we found out, wow, all of these break down salts, all of this breaks down. So I mean, this is just a far more gentle, non-reinoculant. I mean, this is my reinoculant after doing that. So I don't hate Hygrozime by any means. No. There's a definite purpose for it. If you need something fully broken down in your potting soil or your medium, composting a soil, there you have it. Just break that down and then reinoculate with all your microbes.
So this is get rid of all the bad stuff.
It gets all this bad stuff, but it gets rid of all the good stuff.
Right.
So this would get rid of the bad stuff over time while adding good stuff to do the breakdown.
Would you use this in recycling some soil, maybe?
Only if it was just such a booger of a soil that it was not draining, there was some clogging, then that would definitely help clean up a soil. If I just went for my second round of 25-gallon pots of soil that were really nice and earthy, I would do it with SLF instead. Okay. This is life that is cure.
Okay. This is a chemotherapy.
There you go. It's chemo, but but survivable chemo.
Yeah.
You can get back on health food right after using that. And really, it's like let it dry out. It becomes inert, and then you can feed and microbial right on top of it. Okay. There's no residual. It's not going to last, but it is one where it's like you spend all this money with your TT or feed tea.
Yeah. What are you doing?
If you feed tea, feed kill. No, that's not what we want. Go feed tea, feed flush.
Yeah.
This flush is adding to the tea, so it's just more microbes.
Good answer. Oh, wait. There's a PS.
pH?
A postscript.
Okay.
PS. Scott, thanks for your help on my high pH soil. I hit everything with 3 rounds of Gaiamania as you prescribed and got my soil back to 6.4 to 6.8 range. Plants look lush and loaded with frosty buds. I almost 86ed for OG Cushion NL blueberry plants. So I guess he
good. I like to hear those. Got a few of those this week.
Yeah. Black Phase. I pretty much figured out don't trust any water, just distill it, which pretty much sets the water back to nothing in an almost zero, then boosts it with calcite for 3 hours until I got to 107 from 22, and my buds went from golf ball size to around decent sized plums.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a question.
No, kind of sounds like he doesn't like their water locally, and he stopped trusting anything he could buy, so he just started distilling his own.
So you can just buy a still, right? The distilling machine that distills the water. How does that?
Oh yeah, I mean that's pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean they had. I remember when I was at the boat plant a million years ago, they had an acetone distiller, and it was just a little. It was like a bowl that you heated up and a bowl on top of it, and it caught up here, and then it ran off the edge and dropped into a bowl below it. You can do that with, there's water machines that do that, I would assume.
Yeah.
But if you did the water, what would you do to it? I mean, if you distilled water, would you Anyway.
I would want to correct it with at least the meters and Olympus Up or something, but get some calcium back in there or a mineral, or just have really good potting soil with high alkalinity in it.
So one is somewhat equal to the other of having your soil
yeah,
right
but if your
water's
soil's
clean.
so bad. I mean, if your water's so bad, then I get it. I mean, there's some people where you're just like, wow, you definitely you're a victim to your water source.
Yeah.
And then there's people that are like, you're really great at growing because of your water source. So, but like they said, look what happened. They figured out how to go from 22 to 107 from simply just distilling their water, dropping the pH, because that's what he's doing when they distill it. It's going through that carbonic acid reaction. He's getting his distilled. I wonder what his distilled is turning out to, but I bet you it's in that 6.3 to 6.5 range. Running it through calcite for 3 hours or soaking it to get 120, and look at the difference in his flower size. So that's awesome that he figured out how to do that. A lot of people are figuring that piece out.
Genetics and water. Huge factors.
Genetics.
Yeah. You're walking uphill. I mean, you get all the great nutrients and everything. Those are going to work well for you when you have a good plant and a good dirt to put it in.
Yeah. Yep.
Bob, I can't find FullOn anywhere. What's up with that?
What's up with that, Bob?
Well, there's a supply issue, is there not? I don't know.
There's
they're having some trouble, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's a preservative issue. Something somewhere in one of the products is not stabilizing any longer, so it became effervescent. So not that the product is spoiling, it's a effervescence piece that's trying to be figured out at the moment.
So they're in some issues and they're working it out, but
it's a frustrating issue, and a handful of us are wrapping our brains around trying to understand what the missing
what the heck
piece
happens.
was. Yeah, but something it's an effervescence thing where if you go to shake it to make sure it's blended, it's literally like on warm Coke, and that's not a warm Coke you want to open up in a white shirt on.
No.
So
it's one of the more smellier of the products in the world,
and black as night, so it will ruin clothes. But we're working diligently with them to try to figure out the next step on what is to be added to make sure it doesn't become effervescent.
And in the interim, it's just not available.
Yeah, unless you want to gamble and I mean, there's product around it is effervescent, so a lot of people.
So it's been pulled.
Yeah, it's just a safety issue at this point, trying to figure out.
Well, they're good guys. They're not gonna.
Oh no, and we're all sending out prayers and good feelings for Rob with his cancer battle right now. So
he's got a lot going on.
He's got a lot going on, and we're all going for it and
trying to help him,
rooting for him.
Yeah.
Gotcha, Rob.
Okay. Well. That's really upsetting, but we're gonna move on, I guess, because what else can you do?
Yeah.
DMG Inc. DMG Incorporated. It costs more to have it shipped than it costs to buy it. You fucking jerks. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. It doesn't. He's talking about the soil. He's somewhere where he can't get the soil. It costs more to get it shipped. Well, yeah, it does cost more to get it shipped. And
UPS sucks because they make more money on anything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the downfall. So, yeah, the soil game's been tough. We've really been, it's uphill battle. All our distributors have picked up about 3,000% on purchase orders. So, I mean, we know the soil's moving around the country. It's whether or not we can get local stores to pick it up. And unfortunately, it comes down to the customers have to vote on what soils they want.
Well, and also they can help each other out by what they find to hook up, because we don't exactly know because it goes through distributors and stuff, so you don't know if it's who's selling soil or not.
No, and the days of distributors sharing information with the manufacturers, like, hey, these are the stores that are doing... No, they don't even tell you what stores buy product from you anymore. So, I mean, literally, we have to be told what stores are in business, what stores are out of business, what stores carry our line.
Yeah.
I mean, our store locator online is... it was given to us by a distributor who's now gone because of the shady practices. But they gave it, like, anybody who ever even bought 1 quart of something was a distributor on this level. And it's like, so I have customers going, well, that store hasn't even been open in 3 years.
So that's what, email. I mean, if you find a store that's dead or a store that's alive, you should email, or they should email to Scott, because that's how you build it, right? It's just it's
have
cobbled
to.
together.
Yeah, and if we know stores don't have it, or they're interested, or you're a good customer or patron at one of these stores that you want them to get more info, feel free to do that. Reach out to us. We'll reach out to your store. We'll help them. If they're interested, educate them about the products, get them some literature, and then if we can get people to buy 3 to 6 pallets of soil, the freight considerably gets less. 1 to 3 pallets, it's literally double. I mean, I have a guy right now I'm quoting in New Hampshire, and it's like $700 a pallet, and that's 60 bags. So your freight alone is like $11 a bag.
There's a point where you could get more, you could get less soil for more money.
Yep. And then shipping containers. That's the best way to go for us. It's that's one of the only reasons why we really enjoy the distributor model is they can take full rail cars and then break off one pallet at $100 shipping. Yeah. From us, it's going to be $600 to $700 to the East Coast.
Nothing you can do.
No, buy 6 pallets, it goes down. Buy 12 pallets, it's a hard game. Yeah. And soil's, it's frustrating.
Yeah. Freddy B! If I'm not a business, can I order a pallet or a half pallet of number 4 with freight and shipping? Looking for 30 bags. I usually get half a pallet delivered directly from the factory of my current soil company for $625 each spring. Would love to switch back to number 4. So kind of the same question.
Yeah, just the end. You'll have to email me. I'll have to know what your zip code is, and then what we do is we'll put it through a drop ship system. We don't sell directly to the growers or the farms or anybody. We always work with a retail partner because they're the ones that made us. So,
sure.
But we have some retail partners around the country that we work with for drop shipping to make sure that we can take care of different regions while not spitting and stepping on other stores. Or you can always contact OCGFam.com, and they have a Tritons page, or a, what is it called?
The Titans page. OCG, Titans, something like that, where they'll get you a quote, and they'll do everything they can for you. Maybe a couple you can work together, you can find some way to make it work. But it may suck, but it's as good as it gets.
Well, I mean, they buy it at a volume that's ridiculous, so they have probably the best price point locally as far as what they can sell, but freight is, we're not making money on freight.
Yeah, there's just that the freight is what it is. So.
Yeah, and I think any soil manufacturer out there can attest to the same nightmare we'd love everybody to be running number 4. The downfall is it would be $55 a bag if you bought it one bag at a time, so it's not worth the cost.
No. So you can make your own.
You can try to make your own, for sure. Yeah.
That's all what's going on with alkalinity?
Well, there's so much. We still have a whole nother show to do.
Yeah.
And those questions keep piling up, and there's everything from how do I add alkalinity if my water pH is 8, or can I just buy a Boogie Brew? What's the Boogie Brew? Have you seen this Boogie Brew?
I've never seen it, but I think they've got some sort of squirter on your hose that puts calcite into it or something.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I tried to look it up real quick. Didn't get anything from a search. So
where are those guys around here? Are they from?
In California.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and they have all Boogie Brew compost tea pods and stuff. So they're just I've heard good things. It's nothing wrong with the compost tea brew. But a lot of these alkalinity questions that are coming through are ones that are, we don't have the perfect solutions for. There's no one-size-fits-all shoe here for everyone. Everything depends on your water pH that you're starting with. If your alkalinity is 15, your pH is 8.6, and you want a calcite charger, that's not going to be your answer because you need to get your pH of your water down. The very 1, 2, 3 step of all of this is your water has to be between 6.5 and 6.2. You have to run it over calcite at a slow rate of speed. Let's say 5 gallons an hour, 10 gallons an hour, something slow so it's moving through it. It will build your alkalinity up to anywhere from 100 to 140 parts per million depending on the acidity of the water and the flow rate. If you have 7 and higher pH, calcite isn't going to work for you as far as just passing it over. You still have to get your water down to be more acidic to make the calcite available.
Is that why I'm working on the water instead of just working on the soil?
Well, if the whole thing with that is there's 30 ways we can fix this thing.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to be different. So right now with pig.
Yeah.
His water has, what do you say, 400 parts per million of CO2 in the water, so it's creating its own carbonic acid. So when he passes it over his calcite, he's getting 120 parts per million after going through 2 cartridges.
But if you didn't have that...
Well, so then even with that, with his aggressive feeding, with his aggressive CO2, more CO2, which is what CO2 in his water is creating carbonic acid, that CO2 in the environment is still breaking down the calcite in the soil. So even with all that, we're seeing him going from 6.4 to 6.3 to 6.2 in week 4 and 5 of flowering.
Still.
So now we're adding in calcite or calcium carbonate into his potting mix. That is the backup. So as the water is still stripping it down at 6.4 in the solution, it's still pulling that calcite out of the soil, still keeping his pH balanced.
It's a more efficient process in the water than it is in the soil because of the CO2, and is that the issue with everyone with the CO2, or
not everybody? Because if you still have super hot alkaline water because your pH of your water is 8.5 out of the tap, there's a lot of alkalinity built into that. So your CO2 in the room is going to make that alkalinity more available, and so you're going to thrive. If you're starting at 5.9 water and you have CO2 and you haven't built it up into your soil, you're doomed because it's going to keep driving your pH lower.
Okay.
So, we've had anything, if you're a smaller guy, that carbonated water trick is kicking butt for so many people. Starting with anywhere from starting at like a 9 pH water, adding your food, and then pH adjusting. So you're adding a ton of carbonate. You're adding all the more acidic products of our line, which is reacting to the carbonate, converting it to a bicarbonate, increasing alkalinity, then pH adjusting at the very end again. So there's one method. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The other method is mix all your food, jack your pH up to 8, use carbonated water to bring it back to 6.4, because that's carbonic acid, which is super gentle. It's not stable. So it's not something that's going to hold a long time, but as long as you get it into that range of 6.4 and then get it into the soil, then that reaction's done. They eat it, they absorb it, and then your alkalinity is built up. But by building up to 8, so mix your food, jack your pH up to 8.0 with Olympus, that's all calcium carbonate limestone.
Yeah.
Add carbonated water, whether it's a soda stream or Perrier water, drop it to 6.4. But we're finding some different carbonated waters have different strengths of carbonation. So the more carbonated you get, the faster and harder it brings it down. The less carbonated, you have to add a lot of it. So, but basically go from 8 to like 6.4. Okay. That way you've taken that 6.4 to 8.0 pH of limestone and you converted it into alkalinity by taking a carbonate into a bicarbonate through that carbonic acid reaction. So that's a cheap way of doing it. So mix your food, go to 8, drop it with soda water to 6.4. You'll have a high ppm of alkalinity.
So...
Or you start with your water, that's 8. Then you put it through a CO2, reef charger basically, but what do they call it? CO2 reactor that you use for an aquarium setup. And that just takes water and that CO2 goes through it just like a carbonating water. It converts the excess into carbonic acid. Then you run that over your calcite, and that gets you what pig has, 120 parts per million of alkalinity through his calcite chargers.
So, for the vast majority of us that have been growing for a long time and doing just fine, is this even an issue to talk about?
Because everybody I've talked, go to David Miner's page right now and tell me that this issue, because even if it's not an issue, it's the next step. It's not an issue for most.
Yeah, you thought you were killing it, but no.
Wait till you see what you can do now. Even one of my employees is like, always done great. We have decent water here. Everything's been fine. But then he started doing this, and he's like,
really?
Oh man, now I need to cut my veg time in half because I'm outgrowing my room. I'm outgrowing everything just amplifies. It's just fine tuning the nutrient channels to let your plants absorb way more available foods. What we're seeing the most is the residual leftover in the parts per million during our slurries that are normally, let's say we're always between 6.2 and 6.6, but we're in the 400 to 500 range regularly. We're not getting above 250 anymore. It's like you feed them 1,200 to 1,400 parts per million, 2 days later, 250. It's like, geez, you literally can like mainline feed them. So if you dial in your alkalinity, it's not the make or break.
Fixing it.
It's
taking it to a new level.
Yeah, it's speeding it up. It's increasing every bit of it. So, you know, like I said, the other thing we're doing right now is we're creating a new, and you know, we don't like just making products because, hey, everybody else has a product, but we're making a new one that literally is going to be a bloom booster. But it's going to be, because nobody's being able to find this limestone carbonate, calcium carbonate limestone. You can find dolomite, you can find gypsum. These are all calcium products. But there's high sulfur in one, there's high magnesium in one. We're looking just for the calcium limestone. We're going to make a product that has a high level of calcium limestone in it, and in a couple different forms, you know, anywhere from like the Calpro that we always talk about to, you know, straight calcite, calcium carbonate, and then we're going to have the super fine ground porcine in there, the super fine ground bovine. We'll have a little mineral pack in there, and it'll be a bloom enhancement that'll be something we can add in right at transition to pre-build in the alkalinity into the potting soil by putting this load of limestone in, and then they don't have to worry about so much dialing in their alkalinity in their water. Our 4-shot is going to start with a huge load of calcite in there, so your pH is still going to be about 7 out of the bag, but it shouldn't drop below 6.4 throughout the entire bloom cycle for the amount of calcite we're adding.
So 4-shot is taking a little bit of it. Veer?
Oh, it's not. No, it's taken we got to California and then hit the California bureaucratic roadblock. So now we finally,
well, as far as the calcite though, is that a change from what you were doing?
No, the 4-shot was everything the same. All we did after working with Pig in his farm for many moons now is they started working with 4-shot, and we added some more calcite because we've been just watching him with this calcite game, and we've been increasing his custom soils with calcite. Then we're like, hey, we want to try this 4-shot with you. So we ran the 4-shot. Everything was awesome, but he was still running into a low pH issue thing towards the mid to late bloom. So we built an alkalinity into it. And so now he's in the middle of that run right now. Once that's done, we can finish up our registration process, and then we can go to print. So our goal is we go to print on the bags. I mean, we're hoping by January 1st we are out the door with new bags and everything. The downfall is, like right now, the mycorrhiza that's in there, it's just California. So, you know, the company we buy our mycorrhiza from is in California. They have a renewal for this mycorrhiza. California thinks it's a new registration, so it's on a deferral. It's just
a nightmare.
It's bureaucracy. When you have 82 people signing one piece of paper, the 81st one forgot to, so we're literally on this like verge of going crazy, which is fine because Pig is about halfway through on this run, so we're really going to get a sense of how much alkalinity we need to build in before we can just release this. But it'll be something where, you know, the simple 4 in this will crush it, or just this as a water only should be, like the hemp guys will love it because they can just rip open a bag, throw it in there, they're done. But so when we get that figured out, that's going to take a lot of the guesswork out of the alkalinity piece. Having the, you know, it'll be like a 1-shot product, but it'll just be, we'll come up with a name. Hey, contest. Need the art, need a name. But it's going to be a bloom pack with a lot of limestone, porcine meal, and bone meal. It'll be a bloom powder. Yeah.
You just dump the whole bag in there?
No, it'll be like 1 cup per 10 gallons or half cup per 7 gallons.
Minimum, but more it'll
look like 1-shot though. It'll be balled, but we're going to put all that fine powder, the porcine, the pork, and the mineral powders all on calcite. And so we'll have a nice slow release residual calcium building product.
Nice.
So that'll be something coming out for folks here, and we're hoping again this will be a springtime issue. It's just registrations right now are just, they've come to a stop.
Yeah,
state to state. It's funny, in the middle, they're like, done, 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 done. If you're on the outside, like, hold on a minute, we got to think for 14 months. So it's not real fun dealing with that. That's something to think about. And then really the alkalinity thing, it's besides, you know, I don't know of a filter that you can just screw on the end of the hose that is grabbing, unless your water's coming out super acidic, it's just not, the flow rate's too fast to get the alkalinity built up enough to warrant, I couldn't advise on one of those because I haven't played with it. I wouldn't want to, I can't think that flow rate would build up your alkalinity fast enough.
But people have seen good results, and who knows if it was because of that or because they, you know. fairy dust fell out of it. Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows?
But people have said they've done those. And
Yeah, or their water was already fine. I mean, that's the other thing, and it
Then
just
you
added another 3% or something. But,
I got you. It was yeah.
yeah. So there's that. And then we have one guy who just wrote, and I think it'll be in our episode when we actually do it, but they started by taking their water, dropping it to 5.5, running it over the calcite, and then they fed that, but their alkalinity was like 480 parts per million, and there is too much alkalinity, and what happens is when you, like, if your base water has too much alkalinity built into it, and not necessarily a high pH, just too much, the alkalinity can build up in the soil, and then it can turn into pH, and you can start seeing a really high pH. The guy who was happy about the Gaia wash, I'm guessing it's because his water source, like northern Michigan, super high pH, super high alkalinity. Even if adjusting your pH down, that alkalinity can start building up, and then that starts to push your pH back up high. So that's a rare occasion. Southern Oregon fights that. I have one customer down south who's the complete opposite of the guys up north, where his filters fill up with calcium, and then that bypasses his filters into his soil, and his pH goes from 6.4 to 7.4 within a few weeks of his filters being filled.
So is this whatever minerals, or like if you're in a region that had volcanoes as opposed to one that was, some other kind of geological thing, that the water's just in the ground there, and that it's different everywhere. Yeah,
very much. But I mean, luckily in our country, we're a lot of coral beds, a lot of underwater, seabeds, and that's all calcium carbonate.
Yeah.
Coral is carbonate.
Yeah.
Oyster shell's carbonate. All the fresh lakes are grinding up mineral that was converting to carbonate, and gypsum's carbonate. So I mean, I would say majority of us are dealing with decent to good water, and then there's pockets that have acidic water and salty water from hidden ocean beds that never had the crustaceous period, or didn't have the big coral reefs in their area, so they're just more acidic and salty.
And then what if you just have bad water like Flint, Michigan water? I mean, or that's also an issue too with growing. I mean,
well, yeah, and a lot of cities have old pipes, old iron, old septic. I mean, there's so many pieces to water.
Yeah.
Water, and the hard part is RO's not the best. Distilled's not the best. It's really just you have to use what's best to you in your area, in your region, and then make the best of it. There's a way to fix everybody's water. The hard part is you start doing videos on it. Guys with good water are destroying it, trying to make bad water, and the guys with bad water are trying to make. There's just
no telethon. Call us in. What do you got going?
Yeah, what's yours? Okay, don't do that, Jim. We already talked you off the wall, bro. So it's really hard. There's no turnkey, and that's where I think kind of makes our group of companies unique in the sense where anybody. My problem now is that now we got all these people watching these videos. And I'm getting these. I'm using Fox Farm soil with their trio with Roots Organics this and this and that, but I'm using your Olympus up for alkalinity. How much do I use? And that's like, good Lord, that is like,
I don't know.
I want to help you so bad. However, you're not supporting me enough to even type your name. So, all you guys, I know what my customers are. I know how they ask the questions. I don't mean to demean or like attack the ones that don't buy our products, but if you don't get an email back from me, it's because I had 48 that are my actual customers beforehand that are like, hey, I got these questions or issues. There's no turnkey. I can't just quickly answer, oh, no problem, do this. Because I'm going to ask you 100 more questions to figure out what your water is so we can help you.
But our guys are going to go to the front of the queue. So you're never going to... You may get to the front of the line someday. But
or just hold on and wait for the next episode because it might come up. But unfortunately, I can't answer every email from customers that aren't my customers, unfortunately. And I mean, it sucks because I don't like that mentally. I sit there and I stew on it. It's like, I'll just answer this one guy. And I often end up answering most of them. But there's a few days where if you didn't get answered, sorry.
There was
literally... I read past it only because I just didn't have the time.
I doubt there's many people that run a company that are sitting most of the day answering emails from customers.
No, and we've had a few people just not too future past of not too distant past. Future past, that's not a thing.
That's a song. Days of Future Past.
Yeah. It didn't make sense then either.
It makes sense. I got you for a song.
But that sense of that our company has sold out or has become too corporate, and I still laugh at that concept because I still can't think of one company owner in our industry that like literally spends 12 hours a day answering emails to a guy in a 4-plant tent. Yeah, and it's like, and that's not demeaning a 4-plant tent guy.
No.
You pay my rent, so you're my guy. I mean, and that's it. And I try to explain to him, it's like, my company is ran by people I hire to run my company.
Yeah.
I answer the questions because I know the answers to my product line. I can't hire this. Yeah. I can't hire this position out and not have it just be full of shit. Full of poop.
Well, and this is a giant building, and there's no cubicles in here. Each room has a person in it. It's like,
you would think there'd be 40 personality.
You'd think there'd be 40, 50 people working here, like, in the office, and then 100 out there. No, there's just a bunch of people that do a really very efficient job of self-organizing and making shit happen.
We literally have like been, as people have left for other opportunities or life advancements, we're not even rehiring people. We literally are just like, hey, you want to make more money? How much harder was that job with your job? I mean, we'd love to hire for it, but if you want to absorb that, I got all this extra money for you. And it's just, we have really fine-tuned all of our facilities with this. I mean, it's a power team right now. I'm impressed. And they've all been here for 10 to 12 years. So it's not like I'm cycling through employees, but we had like this many at one point. And as we
go do stuff, move on, have kids, whatever, and then it's like, no, we'll just
see if we can make it. See if we can make it. And it's like, man, we're doing great. And actually, the less employees, the more communication and the better the communication becomes. And it's just, so right now has been for however shitty this year has been, I mean, globally and mentally and physically, it's been an amazing year for Organs Only on the sense of, we got to really become a family, a team, as the epidemic hit and everybody had to scurry home and worry about whether or not they're going to pay their rents and mortgages. When we got through all of that, what we got was a family of human beings that came back together to hold this company up. And we haven't skipped a beat. I mean, we have yet to back order a product. We've yet to miss a shipment. Everything's been perfect. And then, Sharknadoes and fires and, I mean, the whole world exploded around us, and yet we still show up every damn day, and we're doing it.
You could have thrown a rock from here at the evacuation zone for the fire.
Oh, literally. I mean, my partner's living in the alley between the two warehouses for the last 3 weeks because he's been evacuated from it. So it's like, it was a horrifying time, and yet we didn't skip a beat. The whole industry's imploding. Nobody can get products. Our products are shipping the day they're ordered still. So we even have distributors going, could you hold the date on this? Because you're the only company that when we put them in, you can ship them the same day. And it's not because we're slow. It's because we're efficient. And we've created a team of guys that have done that. So my last thing is, one of the last things, I'm making a plea.
Okay.
This is a purely selfish plea. Because this time of year, these run out. And this is that, right? The cones. These are the cones. They're the, 1 1/4 inch cone, right? These are from herbs.
So you use these for...
My herbs.
Yeah.
For all my herbs.
That's a tea bag or something, right?
Sure. Only if you're on your back. I usually buy these. I mean, I started this after my surgery for some reason. Just nothing but joints, right? And so I have 2.5 stories of these. When I say that, like, you take the empty one and you sleeve them in, it's 2.5 stories. If I take it outside, it's as tall as my house. And that's in 4 years since my surgery. So if anybody knows the owner of Raw or a good representative of Raw, I can't get the cases. I buy 4 cases at a time. They're MIA. They're nowhere to be found. The industry's in it. I know there's a grow shop that watches this. I will pay for them. I'm not. I don't. Raw, I'm going to switch papers, and I have 2.5 stories of these inserted into each other that climb my whole house. That business is going to go somewhere else. At Christmas, I roll like 300 of these and I give them away. So all I'm saying is, this is a plea that I'm a businessman to businessman. I don't.
God, please give me some of these.
For the love of my employees liking their jobs, if these run out, their jobs aren't safe. So if anybody knows anybody from Raw or has a store that has 5 of these cases and want to figure out how to get rid of them, Because I can't get them right now through OCG. They're completely back ordered. They'll be back ordered well into November.
Good Lord.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, if I switch, I'm a loyal individual.
Alert.
I mean, I've driven Toyotas now for 24 years. Really hard pressed to ever get anything but a Toyota again.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I get stuck on stuff.
Yeah.
Anybody knows that? Just saying. Oh, and then I had one other guy who sent me 6 Chicago deep dish pizzas.
Really?
Yep.
The missus loves the Chicago deep dish. And she's obsessed with them.
This is from
the...
This guy, I'm not going to say his name because he knows who he is.
Oh.
I know you are. But sent, well, first he goes, what kind of pizza you like? And he knows I'm from the Midwest.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, are you New York or Chicago, right? Thin or thick? Because they're pies.
Yeah, it's not thin or
It's not
thick. They're
pizza.
two different things.
No, one's a pizza pie, the other one's a pizza.
Yeah.
So-
Both good. Two different things.
Yeah, he's like, what do you guys like? Pepperoni or sausage or like cheese? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I like pepperoni or sausage. I know a couple people are like cheese, so he sent 6.
Nice.
They're expensive. Overnighted them, froze them. They came on ice.
Oh,
Yeah, so you know who you are. You're the man. That was awesome.
very cool.
Yeah, it kind of shocked, the cheese one kind of shocked one of my employees because they didn't know how to cook a Chicago deep dish.
Oh,
You gotta get it hot and gooey.
Yeah,
and get it super hot, so it's kind of like eating
Yeah.
a mozzarella
Yeah.
slab on
Yeah.
sauce. So I wanted to shout out that because that was huge.
Nice.
Yeah. And then we'll do an alkalinity one real soon.
Okay.
You'll probably see one coming up in the next week.
Yeah.
We'll kind of go through those questions one more time. And sorry for the delay, guys. This has been a long fall of what the hell's going on. I
Yeah.
mean, there was days where we couldn't even come in. And officially, we had to dump out 14,000 gallons of rainwater
Wow.
from that fire ash.
Oh, yeah? Uh-huh.
Couldn't use it, so we had to drain all 80,000 gallon tanks, but there's only 14,000 gallons of water in there.
Wow.
And we had just had the roof washed, and we expect some rain, so we should be able to still avoid using city water. Luckily, we're at the end of the season. We have everything made. We have nothing in reserves that is on the docket for production. But yeah, it was tragic to have to open up that tank and go, here's some ash in there. And there was a lot of ash that came down.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah. It's all
Obviously
over
your house.
Oh, yeah. So, well, like, my garage is all full of ash. And there's just, like, got a vent in my garage, you know, like one of these, like this kind of thing. And from that, there's a big pile of it on the ground. And
Yeah,
then
there's
there's
snow.
all through the thing. The cars had ash on them. Inside, they were in the garage from just opening the door, closing the door kind of thing. It was everywhere.
Oh, so
Yeah.
bad. So we're getting back to it. We're feeling pretty good. We made 0 production we picked up all our cocoa during that time. Production of soil was down, so we have no contamination. Everything we keep is sealed until we're using it. So peat doesn't even get used until it goes into the chipper to the bag. So, you know, fortunately, we should see 0 ramifications of that other than we had to drain 14,000 gallons of rainwater. So that was a tragedy. And the cleaning of those tanks sucks because it's so much work. That tiny hole. Thanks, I'm huge. I don't have to get in it, but I have to pay somebody extra to get into those.
Exactly.
It's a horrible job.
I had a job one time cleaning the sawdust things. Oh, my God.
Try the bone meal vacuum.
Oh,
there.
God, I can't imagine.
The bone house. It literally is so fine. It's like you need a hazmat suit because it probably get into your skin.
Oh, yeah, it's
pores.
because it's so fine. That's the way the sawdust was. It was just like, those things will explode. They'll just like...
Remember that mill?
Oh, yeah.
That was that. Literally, the particular man in the air, the guy hit a spark in it. And then boom. Yeah.
Wow.
So there it is.
That's a show.
Okay, what do you think of that? Good episode? Let me know in the comments, and also we're about to do another alkalinity thing, much more in-depth, answering a lot of your questions and really digging into that. So get your thoughts in the comments, get your question in the comments, and I'll see you next week. I love you. The OCG Fam Show, it's pretty good, it happens every day. It's the OCG Fam Show. See you tomorrow. Actually, Monday. It's gonna be Monday before I see you.